So we know border crossings right across Canada, they're getting pretty quiet these days. And we know it's hurting the border towns because you got people like this still insisting on sending us marketing campaigns and promos. Now, I'm not gonna lie, but I did think at some point the cross-border numbers would actually bottom out. And my guess was actually about maybe 30 to 45%, depending on which province. Because you have one group which wants nothing to do with the United States, which is pretty much us, I guess. You have another group who really doesn't care. Another group might be those that are still going for family or work reasons. And I thought after about a year, everything would kind of bottom out and settle down. Those who want to go, they're still going to go. And those that don't, we're going to go elsewhere. I actually thought the 2026 numbers would be like in the single digits when it comes to year-over-year decline. Well, I'm happy to say that I'm completely wrong. And going into 2026, we're still having the same motivation and momentum. And the year-over-year decline from last year is in the double digits. So today I have two articles that I want to show that actually prove this. And later on, one of our viewers sent me another article that shows that TSA is sharing details with ICE. So if you're still on the fence on whether or not you're going to travel to the United States, you might want to check this one out. And if this is the first time you're clicking on one of my videos and you want to hear more from a Canadian or international perspective, hit that subscribe button below so you're notified of my future videos. So let's get started on this, and I'm going to start with the article out of my home province in British Columbia. And it's titled, Number of BC drivers crossing US border continues dropping. Let me read this article out for you because I know some of you are just listening. For yet another month, the number of BC drivers heading south into Washington State was down. Compiling data from 4 border crossings, Peace Arch, Linden, Sumas, Pack Highway, the Whatcom Council of Governments say there was a 22% drop-off in March compared to the same month last year. Now here's the kicker. Compared to March 2024, the rate was down 55%. 55 freaking percent. Like, I never thought any province would actually breach the 50% mark, and British Columbia has done that. Well done to all my fellow British Columbians back home. I'm honestly really proud of you guys. The article goes on to say the drop-off began in February 2025, within weeks of the US President Idiot's inauguration, when he began threatening to annex Canada, referring to it as a 51st state and imposing steep tariffs. Whatcom County notes that the data for March is incomplete, missing 5 days, but the entry follows a trend of border crossing declines month over month since August 2025. According to Statistics Canada, the number of Canadians taking return trips to the US dropped 25.4% in 2025, while overseas trips rose 9.2%. Now, the big thing in this article, if you ask me, is the fact that we actually breached the 50% mark from the time that the Orange Idiot went into the office. And like I said earlier, I thought it would bottom out at maybe a 40-45% for British Columbia. But to actually see it go over 50% is actually pretty remarkable. Because don't forget, in March, there's spring break for the kids. Take, for example, my friends. They got kids that are, I guess, anywhere in the range of like 5 to 12. And a few of them actually went to Tokyo because they didn't want to go to the United States. My other friend would have been an automatic to go to California. But instead, he came out to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to visit us. And I totally forgot to ask him to bring over some coffee, Chris. Yeah, that was a dumb part on my part. But my point is that people are actively avoiding the United States, even if their kids wanted to go to Disneyland. They did go to Disneyland, they just went to Tokyo. And my friend that came here took his kid to Universal Studios in Singapore. So these lines at the border crossing that you're seeing on the screen right now, and this one specifically for the Peace Arch that used to back up all the way to the exit for White Rock. Yeah, that should prove enough that I'm from BC. What I'm trying to say is that those lines are going to be gone, and I don't think it's going to happen for a very long time. And I'm actually really surprised that BC broke the 50% mark. And one other indicator that I received is actually from one of our viewers that I actually interviewed in the past. If you haven't seen that interview, I spoke to a Canadian that is living in Washington State, but does have a plan to move back to Nanaimo. And by the end of the year, he should hopefully have his business sold and be able to move back to Canada. But he has actually been helping to keep an eye on what's going on in Washington State for me. And I'm going to summarize some of the stuff that he's noticed in his area. He mentioned that Easter weekend is usually one of the busier holidays within his area. The parking lot was somewhat full, but not completely full. Lots of empty big lots. And he said this, I was curious about the effect on the Canadian boycott, so I took a little walk around just now and counted all the license plates in the public parking spaces. There were 7 from British Columbia, 1 from Saskatchewan, 22 US states not Washington, and 306 Washington. Subtract about 100 Washington plates for locals with apartments in the area and the businesses. Therefore, 8 Canadian, 22 non-Washington state, and 206 Washington. According to the Chamber of Commerce data, pre-Big Orange days, that should be 20% BC, 20% US not Washington, and 60% Washington. So, it appears that Canadian tourism is down about 82%, which is more or less what I've been guessing, and the US tourism is down about 53%. Now, this is just a very small sample of an area in Washington state, But it also does reflect in terms of the amount of traffic that we're seeing going to the United States. I mean, you got to remember it. Like every single car that you see right now going south in this picture, they're going to be spending at least what, $500 to $1,000 or more. I mean, that could be anything from like groceries to eating at a restaurant to going to the premium outlet or shopping or going into some sort of event. Like if I take myself for example, I would go down to the United States, pick up a package. That's what, $20, $30 in shipping and holding fees. Then we go to Bellis Fair or somewhere in Bellingham for lunch. That's another $50. Then my wife decides I want to go shopping, so that's like the premium outlets, which could be what, $400 or $500. Then I decide that I want my Ivers clam chowder, so we drive even further to Seattle, spend some more money there, do some grocery shopping, and then by the time we get back, it's close to like $800 to $1,000 just for a day. And that's just my car. You see all these cars in the line right now? And I'm sure some of them are probably spending more than my wife and I. Because if they're staying overnight or going for a weekend trip, that's even more money spent. But one thing that I do know for sure is that I won't be doing that anytime in the near future. And I definitely won't be getting any more Ivers clam chowder. I mean, screw that guy. Actually, I had a few people email me and tell me, what do you got against Ivers clam chowder? And I think they were relatively new to my channel. But I'm going to show you right now.
If you come from Canada with a Canadian driver's license or a passport, or you use that goofily delightful Canadian accent, we'll give you a 30% discount.
Yeah, this goofily accent Canadian says, go shove your clam chowder. So I think all Canadians have to be really proud about this. We breached the 55% mark. And I actually don't see any improvements anytime in the near future. But what I do see is that we're going to be getting more and more reports like this in the future. This is one I did from I think end of July of last year. Let's take a look.
A lot of people from Victoria come down during the summer, and it's summer, middle of summer, we've not seen any Canadian traffic. It's been months, 3 to 4 months, and the last time they were here, they were complaining about the border, about the max they can spend while they're here.
It's a bleak reality that's left Sasha Lisikov questioning if she can keep her business, Minted Method, open much longer.
I'm at a point where we've been cutting hours for our employees.
A far cry from the smiling faces and adorable onesies she was posting on social media. Sasha picked up her phone and set the record straight that things were far from sunny.
I'm at a point where I didn't want to just suddenly close on our customers without giving them a heads up, and the local people that could maybe help support this, since we are really reliant on the Canadian traffic to come down here.
Now, I honestly can't count the amount of times that I've had lunch or shopped in the Fairhaven area. But it looks like this business didn't actually make it, because when I searched it on Google, it now says that it's permanently closed. It's sad that it actually has to come down to this. But as a Canadian who used to support Bellingham, I just can't do it anymore. It may not be because of you personally. I don't know who this woman voted for, but obviously if she did vote for the orange guy, then yeah, I have no sympathy. But definitely your fellow citizens. And then also this guy as well.
The other really important component to this conversation is the exchange rate. I want to say that it was right about a 70 cents to the dollar, and we have always known that that is pretty close to the bottom of the exchange rate, where it just doesn't make financial sense for Canadians to shop here.
So there's plenty of reasons why Canadians are not going to the United States. That guy is just one of them for me, among the dozens of others. But at least for businesses in the United States like this Mint Method, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more border businesses closing this year. So to close off this segment, I want to say congratulations to everyone back home in British Columbia. Now this next report comes out of the state of Maine. And this is for everybody in Quebec and New Brunswick, because this is your efforts right here. I'll read this out for everybody. New data released on April 7, 2026 by Statistics Canada. What's a US company using Statistics Canada for? What's wrong with your own stats? Well, I think we all know what that is. Statistics Canada shows a 22% year-on-year drop in Canadian leisure trips to the United States in January. The downturn is being felt acutely in Maine, where state officials report 70% fall on crossings and land ports on entries in the first 2 months of 2026. Now again, we have another state reporting double-digit percentage falls, not compared to when the orange guy first got into the office, but compared to last year. I would love to compare the numbers before the orange guy took office till now. My guess is going to be somewhere between 35 and 40%, maybe 45. If anybody is able to get me these numbers, I will gladly show them on my channel. The trend extends a slide that began after the orange guy's second-term trade tariffs and immigration crackdowns chilled the border travel. Maine's tourism economy relies heavily on the short-haul visitors from New Brunswick, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, who ride by car or bus for shopping and coastal vacations. Hoteliers in Calais, is that how you say it? And Holton say that winter occupancy rates is just 39%, the lowest since the pandemic. Some operators blame a weak Canadian dollar, yeah, fuck you, but many point out the tougher US inspection procedures, including social media screenings for visa-exempt travelers, under the enhanced ESTA program launched last November. Okay, am I missing something, but why are they talking about ESTA when Canadians don't actually need it? Sure, maybe if there's foreigners living in Canada that want to go to the US and that require it, but that's not going to be a good majority of it. You see the difference here between this report and the previous one. I didn't even have to look to see where this publication is based to know that they're a US company. Moving on. Governor Janet Mills, my favorite gaslighting governor. And if you're unaware of why I actually call her that, just watch this clip.
And so when people stop coming to Maine, particularly from Canada, from the maritime provinces, they're not hurting Donald Trump. They're not hurting the powers that be in Washington. They're hurting their friends here in Maine, whose businesses thrive and depend on Canadian traffic. And that is disappointing. You're not sending a message to Washington, and you're only hurting your friends and potentially family members who live and work in Maine.
Well, sorry to disappoint you, Governor Mills, but we're also disappointed. I mean, when I say we, I mean the rest of the world. We're disappointed that you're doing absolutely nothing to get your president out of the office. So no, I don't have any sympathy for you, or your state. Well, that's Bowtie Guy and Governor Mills in one video. I wonder if I can fit those domestic tourist clowns in this video as well. Anyways, back to the article. Governor Gaslighter has ordered the state tourism to develop incentives such as duty-free fuel vouchers and digital marketing in French to woo Canadians back before summer. Now, let me ask the French Canadians, is that going to woo you back? Getting some duty-free fuel vouchers and digital marketing? Let me know in the comments below. I'm actually curious to see what you guys think about this. Meanwhile, the Maine Motor Transport Association warns that the decline in personal vehicle volumes are also slow in commercial traffic. Trucks share primary inspection booths whose staffing is adjusted to overall lane demand. Longer waits could disrupt just-in-time shipments for the state's seafood and paper industry. For companies that rotate executives or technicians between Quebec and New England, you know what? I'm not going to bother reading the rest of it. It doesn't apply to any of us. But going back to the original paragraph that I read out, a 17% fall in the first 2 months of 2026 is pretty huge. And I'm not going to lie, I thought the percentages for this year comparing to last year, 2025, would be in the single digits. Because don't forget, if I use BC as an example again, we have a 40% decrease average. I would thought it would be maybe about 40 to 45. And that 50%, it really shocked me. No, 55%, it really shocked me. So for those living in Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, well done on the 17% so far this year. I'm curious to see what their March numbers are going to be, because don't forget, March was spring break for a lot of kids. And to be honest, I'm actually curious to see what the rest of the country is like as well. Now moving on to the last article. It's titled, ICE arrested more than 8,000 people after tips from TSA, investigation shows. Now, you would be a bit naive to think that ICE and TSA are not talking to each other. Now that they're in the airports together, actually, have ICE left the airport? I haven't seen anything about that yet. Anyways, the concern I have with this is not at the airport, but it's what happens when you're inside the country. It doesn't take much for a TSA agent to flag your name. And I wouldn't want to have that possibility of like being on vacation in the United States and all of a sudden, are you so-and-so? Then getting harassed by these guys and potentially detained. But it's also the fact of what are they actually going to do with this data? Why are they sharing it? What are they going to use it for? Basically weaponizing your data. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article, but I just want to point out a few paragraphs. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, arrested more than 800 people following tips shared by federal airport security officials from the start of the Orange Guy's second presidency through February 2026, according to the internal agency data reviewed by Reuters, a figure far above what was previously known. The leads came from the Transportation Security Administration, TSA, which supplied ICE with records of more than 31,000 travelers for possible immigration enforcement, the data showed. Now, this next part is the one that concerns me. Reuters could not determine how many arrests took place inside the airport, although the TSA tips would mainly be useful determining when a person would be traveling, because they will know when you're traveling out of the country or if you're traveling from one city to another. For me, I wouldn't want that over my head. Now, this last paragraph I want to read out. The 31,000 traveler records that were gathered by TSA's Secure Flight Program, which was created in 2007 to allow the agencies to review passenger information for people who may be on the US government watch list. The program was intended as a counter-terrorism measure, not to track down immigration offenders, according to the regulation outlined in purpose. Now, for everybody watching this right now, do you believe that they're only going to use it for counter-terrorism measure? Because I don't, and I think everybody should be cautious when it comes to this. Now, sometimes I just have to sit back and think about actually what's going on over the last 14 months. Because for a country that I used to visit so much, where the entry was just a breeze. I mean, with Nexus, you would literally speak to the guy for less than 10 seconds and you're gone through. But now, there's just too many things that could go wrong. I've always said 9 out of 10 people might still get through to the United States and everything would be fine. And unfortunately, I do know some people that are still going. Most of them are getting through fine, but some of them have been pulled into secondary. But I don't want to be that 1 in 10 or 1 out of 20 that is going to get pulled over for absolutely no reason. So I hope this last article kind of reinforces the changes that are going on right now. And again, it's just adding to the list of pile of reasons that why we're not going to go to the United States. Alright, to close off this video, I would like to thank Damon from our Discord server, who posted this photo of the Rogers Center in Toronto. I couldn't figure out where to put the co-host, so I just put her in the field. But thanks Damon for posting this up in the Discord server. Alright, that's all I got for today's video. And I know the co-host has been quiet today, because she's making more biscuits. This blanket that you see in the video, that's her favorite blanket. And if she touches it, she's going to make some biscuits. So if you wanted to hear, unfortunately you have to wait for the next one. If you found any value in anything I said today, or you want to hear more from a Canadian or international perspective, without the US media bias, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. That way you're notified of my future videos. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that'll show up on your screen shortly. Thanks everyone, I'll catch you in the next one.